The Zephyrian research vessel Quantum Drift materialized in Earth's upper atmosphere with the silent precision that had made their species the galaxy's premier xenobiologists. Captain Vextar adjusted his sensory apparatus, scanning the primitive planet below for suitable specimens. Their mission was routine: collect a few examples of the dominant species for study, catalog their basic capabilities, and move on to the next system. "Sir," Communications Officer Zelha announced, "I've located an isolated specimen. Adult male, approximately 37 rotations old, minimal technological augmentation detected." On the viewing screen, they observed a lone human setting up camp beside a mountain lake. The creature appeared perfectly ordinary, bipedal, carbon-based, laughably fragile. It carried primitive tools and what appeared to be shelter materials constructed from organic fibers. "Excellent!" Vextar clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. "Initiate extraction protocol. This one should provide adequate baseline data for our research." The extraction beam engaged with a soft hum, and within moments, Marcus Chen found himself standing in a sterile, white chamber aboard an alien vessel. Where most humans might have panicked, screamed, or fainted, Marcus simply took a slow, measured breath and began observing his surroundings. The 37-year-old wilderness instructor had spent the last 15 years preparing for every conceivable survival scenario: nuclear war, economic collapse, natural disasters. He'd trained for them all. While alien abduction hadn't been on his explicit list, Marcus approached it with the same methodical calm he brought to every crisis. First, assessment. The room was approximately 12 feet square with walls that seemed to emit their own light. No visible doors, but the air was breathable and temperature-controlled. No immediate threats detected, but his captors clearly possessed technology far beyond human capability. Marcus heard a melodic chiming sound, followed by what he could only assume was alien speech. The universal translator kicked in moments later. "Greetings, Specimen 7-432-891, a voice announced from hidden speakers. "You have been selected for behavioral analysis. Please remain calm while we conduct our initial observations." A panel slid open in the wall, revealing a tray of what appeared to be food pellets and a container of clear liquid. Marcus examined them carefully without touching. The pellets had an artificial sheen, and the liquid, while clear, had an unusual viscosity. His wilderness training had taught him never to consume unknown substances without testing. Instead, he began exploring his environment systematically. Running his hands along the walls, he discovered that while they appeared seamless, there were subtle variations in temperature and texture. One section felt slightly different, a potential access panel or weak point. Hours passed. The aliens continued their observations, fascinated by their specimen's behavior. Unlike previous subjects who had either cowered in fear or exhausted themselves with futile escape attempts, this human was methodically mapping every inch of his containment. "Curious," noted Dr. Kithera, the expedition's lead xenobiologist. "The specimen shows no signs of distress despite its obvious captivity." What the aliens didn't understand was that Marcus had spent countless nights in wilderness survival situations where staying calm meant staying alive. He'd been trapped in caves, caught in blizzards, and stranded in deserts. This was simply another problem to solve. By the second day, Marcus had identified 17 potential tools within his cell. The food tray, while intended for sustenance, could be modified into a cutting edge. The liquid container, when emptied, might serve as both a weapon and a water collection device. Even his clothing could be repurposed. Shoelaces became binding material, buttons could be fashioned into small tools. The aliens began introducing challenges to test their specimens' problem-solving abilities. They flooded the room with knee-deep water. Marcus immediately removed his boots and socks, using them to create makeshift flotation devices while standing on the food tray to keep dry. When they introduced extreme cold, he used the reflective properties of the wall panels to redirect heat from the lighting system, creating a thermal regulation zone. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Kithera reported to Captain Vextar. "The specimen appears to possess adaptive capabilities far beyond our initial projections." On day 5, Marcus made his move. Using a combination of the modified food tray and systematic pressure applied to the weak point he'd identified, he managed to partially breach the wall panel. The aliens' security systems immediately activated, but Marcus had anticipated this. He'd observed the pattern of their monitoring cycles and chosen his moment carefully. As alien security forces rushed to contain the situation, they discovered something that defied their understanding of human capabilities. Marcus had not only escaped his cell, but had somehow accessed their ship's environmental systems. Using nothing but primitive tools fashioned from his cell's contents, he had begun systematically disabling their life support systems. "How is this possible?" Vextar demanded as emergency lights bathed the ship in crimson. "Our containment protocols are tested against thousands of species." Marcus appeared on their communication screens, having somehow accessed their ship's computer network using improvised conductors made from his shoelaces and metallic threading from his clothing. "Let me be clear," he said calmly, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to life-or-death situations. "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I also won't be anyone's lab rat. You can either return me to Earth immediately, or I'll continue dismantling your ship piece by piece until you have no choice." The aliens had encountered aggressive species before, but this was different. This human hadn't overcome their technology through brute force or advanced weapons. He'd simply outthought them, using resourcefulness and adaptability they hadn't believed possible in such a primitive species. "Sir," Zelha reported nervously, "he's somehow gained access to our navigation systems. If he continues, he could strand us in deep space." Captain Vexistar made a decision that would later influence first contact protocols across the galaxy. "Transport him back to his planet immediately and update our files. Humans are to be classified as a potentially dangerous species." As the extraction beam deposited Marcus back beside his mountain lake, he simply shouldered his backpack and continued setting up camp. To him, it had been an interesting 5-day survival exercise. To the Zephyrians, it was a revelation that would make them think twice before underestimating any species again. The quantum drift departed Earth's system with unprecedented haste, leaving behind a single human who had just redefined what it meant to be the most dangerous predator on any planet, not through strength or technology, but through the simple, terrifying power of human adaptability and the refusal to give up. Marcus finished securing his tent and smiled slightly as he looked up at the stars. Tomorrow, he'd add alien abduction survival to his training curriculum. After all, a good survivalist always planned for every contingency,